Welcome, Kim Searle here from Business Phoenix, interviewing Julia Hyland. Hello, Julia, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Kim. Nice to see you.
And you, and you. And we just wanted to find out more about who you are and what you do. Do you just want to just tell us that?
Sure. So I'm an independent HR advisor and I run my own company, set up 4.5 years ago. I've got 20 years experience in HR and I wanted to bring that experience from a variety of different companies, public sector, private sector, and to bring it across to help local businesses who perhaps can't afford an HR person or don't need an HR person.
Oh, excellent. And so what's your area of expertise? Do you have one, or are you just not just, but a generalist? Let me just rephrase that. Are you an expert in one area, or are you a generalist?
I think I would say I'm happy to say I'm a generalist HR person, so I can help with all sorts of aspects of HR. And I also have connections to other information. So if I don't know the answer, I'll go and find the answer. So I try and give the best advice. Because I was a line manager before I went into HR, I also try and make sure that my advice is practical and will actually help a business along, because sometimes the law might not be the most helpful thing. So it's about interpreting the law and making sure it works for a business. I've also become a bit of an expert in health and safety and GDPR with data protection, because I always had an interest in data protection anyway. And obviously when the GDPR came in, 2 years old next month in May.
Oh, is it really? Oh, yeah, that's gone over, hasn't it?
We should have a party. So all those sort of aspects. So, but where I really like to help people is with people, because I think people come to, sorry, too many peoples, but I think people generally come to work to do a good job. So if they're not doing a job, where's the disconnect? Is it that it's not quite the job they thought it was? Is it that the job's changed? Is it that they've changed? It's all sorts of things. And obviously in the current time, I've become an expert in furlough, which was something I didn't even know about 6 weeks ago, and now I know a lot about it. So.
Yes, furlough isn't something that's been a topic that we've ever really had in this country, have we? That's fairly new. It's an American thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's American. So quite a few American companies do have it in their contracts. I was checking through it because basically when people go on furlough, you can have it in a slightly different way depending. If you had a clause in the contract about short-term working or layoffs, then you could implement furlough. If you didn't have that element, you have to discuss it and come to an agreement. So I was checking through, most of the contracts I've written in the last 4.5 years had short-term working and layoff, but none of them had the term furlough.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so maybe it's the term that's the thing, isn't it?
I think it's from an American movie, isn't it? From the sort of 50s war film is it furlough? Because it's more of a military term. But,
oh, is it?
But I still love the people who call it furlong anyway. So we're sort of calling it furlong quite a lot now because that's more funny.
There's a bit of a race to get it. Fantastic. So your background then, you said you were a manager that went into HR. What drew you to HR?
Well, I've done various different things before I went into HR. And as I say, I try and bring that to be quite practical. I was a manager in a warehouse. So I worked in logistics for Beats the Chemist. And I thought I'd head in a slightly different direction anyway. And part of the reason I got into HR was because I got really annoyed by the HR advice that I was getting and thought I could do a better job. It's not necessarily the right answer, is it? But it was a fascinating place to do HR because I moved from logistics into HR. So the great thing there was that I knew the background. So in terms of credibility, I could learn the HR bit, but I knew the logistics environment. So I did that for 2 years. And it was a very interesting place to work because it was a unionised environment. It was a combination. At that time, I was supporting one large warehouse in Aldershot, which has subsequently been knocked down. It used to be Timothy White's warehouse.
Oh, those are the days.
I know, that slightly ages people. So it was a warehouse built in the 1920s. So that was the one I used to work in before I went into logistics. So that brought some challenges. That was fascinating, actually, to kind of go back and give advice to people I used to work with, because obviously you have to pitch it slightly differently. And then I also supported, at the time, Beats had, I think it was something like 20 distribution centres all around England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. So myself and a colleague, we sort of job shared in the sense that I had the southern half of the country and Ireland and Wales, and she had the north. So we each had kind of, I think it was 10 distribution centres. So that was really interesting in terms of culturally, So everywhere's people, and we're all working for the same company, and we're all doing the same thing, but very different response. Well, in the Republic of Ireland, different law, but so they had one manager for the Republic of Ireland and Belfast DCs. So that was fascinating talking to him in terms of having to know two separate, laws. And at the time, Dublin was going through the whole Celtic Tiger. So I did quite a lot of work about when you relocate somebody, and Boots used to have a very generous relocation scheme. I mean, they've all gone by the wayside now, haven't they? But that involved giving support for people buying a house and things like that. So yeah, and then also in logistics, you had those elements where there were quite a lot of disciplinaries and grievances, because it's that sort of environment. I had to go to a few tribunals, so it was a really good learning experience. And it was interesting because the reason I left Boots was my husband got a different job and we moved away. So then I was looking for a job in HR, and everywhere it kept going, at least 3 years experience. And I was trying to sort of say, okay, I only had 2 years experience, but what I did there was a bit like dog years in terms of the amount of work that I did, and projects, and working with other people, and all sorts of elements of change management as well, because Boots were going through a lot of changes at the time. So it's always that element of trying to incorporate what the business is going through into how you're giving the HR advice. So that's probably one of the things I miss now in a way, is because when I worked in HR, so I went from Boots to Royal Bank of Scotland private banking. That was very interesting because I worked in Mayfair, darling, and I was supporting a very high-end clients, and we were part of Coots at the time, and it was all marvellous.
Oh, Coots, yes.
And they got quite cross. Some people got quite cross that I'd come from, dirty-handed logistics. What did I know? So I had to learn about banking, and I had to reinforce my credibility in the sense of the fact that people are people, clients are clients. A lot of the issues you get, so the tone of the grievance or the disciplinary might be different, slightly less fighting and wrapping people in cling film and putting them in the back of a lorry. But in terms of the issues that you had, quite similar, so absence, performance management, the nuts and bolts elements of it. So I worked for NatWest and Royal Bank of Scotland, and that was fascinating because obviously NatWest and Royal Bank have been around for hundreds of years. Royal Bank had bought NatWest about 3 years previously, so a massive period of change management, squidging two cultures together. We were supported to go on a course at Cranfield School of Business Management, and it was a 5-day course, really interesting. And they went this thing about 10 signs that a company is going to fail, and one of them was build a massive head office. Oh, we've just done that. And it was like merge two organisations. Oh, we've just done that. And this I left a year before the crash. So
oh wow,
yeah,
what an interesting background you've got there, and such a wide set of experiences. And I love the fact that you were line management, so you were at the raw end of the coalface, so to speak, before going into HR, if you can like that, because you've got a real sense of what the business was doing, and you understand what it's like on the other side of the fence.
And you try and understand. That's the thing, isn't it? You can never understand. It's that whole thing. But it's that one about trying to walk in people's shoes. So my husband is still in logistics, is still a line manager. That's how we met. But if I had to hear a grievance against him, that was one of the first times I met him. But anyway, story for another time. But that element of just trying to make the advice practical. So here's the law, or here's the tribunal decision, or this is what we've got to do. So when I talk with clients now, it's about almost, well, this is the risks that you've got, and these are the options. But I'm very mindful of the fact at the end of the day, it is options. So where it can get difficult sometimes is people go, tell me what to do. And I have to say, well, I can give you advice, but at the end of the day, it's your business, it's your reputation, it's your decision, but these are the risks and the opportunities of if you do this course of action, this course of action, this course of action.
Yeah, sometimes it's just that it's too difficult to take the decision. They need even more guidance. So I understand that.
And I've sat in many a disciplinary in the past where people go, I didn't want to do this, but HR are making me. And you kind of go, why would you say that and undermine what you're doing? But I think management is a fascinating area, because quite often I'll talk with people about people have become a manager because they were very good at what they were doing, but just because you're good at something doesn't mean you're a good manager. So I think it'd be fascinating time for training going forwards in terms of giving people training, because the world of work is going to change so much in the next 5 years, in terms of giving people that support and assistance, and particularly in the area of mental health and well-being and everything.
Yeah, no, it's all going to be turned on its head. So what attracted you then to Business Phoenix?
Well, I'd met Di through a friend had met her through business networking, and then we did some HR work together for one of her companies. And I think we, you know, when you meet somebody, you feel a kind of spark of recognition. I've only really met Di once, but in terms of the way we approach things, again, I would say she's pragmatic, she's practical. She sees this as an opportunity, you know, in a positive way. She wants to help people.
Yeah.
And I haven't met James yet, but we've exchanged emails. So they were just saying that they thought it'd be great to have somebody with HR experience, and Di thought of me, which is very flattering. So my involvement so far is I've pulled together lots of frequently asked questions about furlough, because where we're learning all together is such a new element that you're just trying to think through issues and opportunities. So my latest one is the fact that, as ever with bank holidays, I mean, I've been in HR now 20 years. I got a lovely certificate the other week, 20 years as a member of the CIPD, and still holidays and bank holidays are the most frequently asked question. And I think people have kind of forgotten that next week's bank holidays moved to Friday. So it's that kind of...
You do?
What?
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Well, I do, because 2 people have said to me, I can't do the meeting then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bank holiday.
Bank holiday. Yes. So it was to do, it's really sad in a way. It was to do with commemorating VE Day. And so Friday the 8th is VE Day. So they moved it. My accountant was very cross about this because she hadn't realised. And it was about last June, I think, that they moved it, because the calendar makers got very cross because a lot of them had already printed up calendars saying this Monday. So
yes. Oh, excellent. That's a whole different sort of topic then.
Yeah, sorry.
So how do you envisage you being able to bring all that wonderful skill set and help businesses that such as the Business Phoenix are trying to reach, those who are struggling right now and, you know, struggling in the future perhaps? How do you think you might be able to help?
Well, hopefully I can bring my HR experience to bear, and I like the fact that it's you know, there's an element of pro bono work so that you can give something back to people. Yeah. I mean, it's been a strange few weeks really, because it's about trying to support people and sort of filter down the advice that's out there and give it back to people. So I think if I can do anything like that to help, then I'm more than happy to help people.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. So if there was just one thing that we've not covered that you think that would be really useful to people watching this video, what might that be? Some advice or some tip or something else?
It's probably a bit of a cliche, but there's not generally a germ of truth in cliche, isn't it? And I think it's that one about the phrase that's circulating. So we're all in it together. So in some respects, yes, we are. We're all going through this, but it's that element of we're all going through it quite differently. So I saw there was quite a good one of 2 dogs on Facebook, and they're in it together, but this tiny, it's a very, very muddy puddle, and this tiny dog, the mud's up to there, and the large dog, the mud's kind of about that on their legs.
Yes.
So it's that idea that trying to help people understand that we're all going through it together, yes, but we're all going through it differently. So I think for some people, working from home is the dream they always wanted, but other people, working from home has suddenly become a harsh reality and they've realised they never want to work from home again. And I think that kind of linked to, I'm not a mental health expert, but I know mental health experts, but that kind of element of how much everything's changed and not knowing when it's going to end. So normally you've got a finite point, haven't you? If you're a retail business and Christmas or Black Friday is your end goal, you've prepared for it. You know how long it's going to be. It's going to finish. This, we don't know how long it's going to go on for. I'm not saying it's like a war, because I don't think it is a war. It's a bit of, again, a cliche. But we were thinking about the Second World War the other day, and the fact that that went on for 6.5 years. I'm really hoping this doesn't go on for 6.5 years, but we don't know.
Oh. You're right, we don't know, and I'm pretty sure that we won't go 6.5 years. Let's just put it out there, because I'm one of these that we can create our reality, but that's another story too. But
I think economically, and house prices and the effect on the economy, my son intriguingly called it Depression 2 Electric Boogaloo yesterday, so I think that's the way forward for us all.
Exactly, so it's just the way you see it. It's just like those dogs in those puddles. Yeah. How you're seeing it. Let's all just be that tall dog, even if we are short and up to our armpits in sludge. You've been marvellous, Julia. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. Really, really interesting, and I'm sure you're going to bring a lot of value to the people that come to Business Phoenix. Thank you, everyone, for watching us today. If you want to contact Julia, email is julia.phoenix julia.hyland, Hyland, at businessphoenix.org. So thank you, Julia. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.